We know that the Nats are not making any postseason run, but up to this point, this final stretch will be very important for the Nationals in the long run, and I'll explain why.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And of course, I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as our show page at LO_Nationals for all your latest Nationals news and notes. Make sure to check us out over on Twitter. And of course, this is Locked On Nationals. Look up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcast, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and including over on YouTube. Again, just search Locked On Nationals. Hit that subscriber button. Drop a comment, drop a thumbs up, or even a thumbs down. Whatever you want is what makes me happy. So later on in today's show, we will discuss Game 2 of this Nationals-Mets series as the Nationals are up in Citi Field. They did lose in extra innings last night of a score of 2-1. But tonight you've got Mitchell Parker on the bump against Tyler McGill. So we'll discuss that game in the third segment of today's show. In the second segment, let's all relax. Just take a deep breath. CJ Abrams has been struggling. He's been dealing with injuries, but you should not be jumping off the bandwagon. I'll explain in the second segment of today's show. But as we mentioned in today's cold open, I'm telling you guys right now, this stretch for the Washington Nationals will come off to be the most important stretch of the 2024 season, and I'll explain that. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. So we get started with explaining this theory that I have. This is the most important stretch for the Washington Nationals in 2024. You're going to learn a lot about this young core. We are not going to be playing October baseball. CJ Abrams knows that. James Wood knows that. Dylan Cruz knows that. They all know it and understand it. You're not a playoff team. But this is what it's going to take to be a postseason team. Over these last few series against really good teams, by the way, you're going to learn the most about the Nats. You have this 3-game set against the New York Mets who are battling and clawing to try to get that third wild card spot. This is a playoff team talking about the Mets. They are playing for a postseason spot. This is their postseason right now. They need to win every single game. There is going to be playoff atmospheres every single game from here on out because the teams that the Nationals are going against for this final week and a half, 2 weeks of the season, they're all fighting for a playoff spot. You've got this 3-game set against the Mets. You've got the 4-game set up in Chicago at Wrigley Field against the Cubs, who right now sit 5 games back from a wild card spot, but still mathematically they could make a postseason spot here soon. And then you have 3 games against the Kansas City Royals over at home at Nationals Park. And then you have 3 games against the Philadelphia Phillies. You will learn the most about this. And this is our taste of playoff baseball. You know, people always talk about this. It's always tough for a team that's out of contention to show up every single day in the month of September. It just is. It always has been and it always will be. Because they're major leaguers. They've already made it. They know the standings. They know where they stand at this point. There's nothing to play for. They hear that all the time. It's football season. That's really what the city is in right now. But you and I, we will learn the most about Dylan Cruz and James Wood. And when CJ Abrams is eventually healthy, hopefully here soon, you will learn a lot about him as well. The questions that I have over this next few games here, next week and a half, is who's going to step up in big moments? Out of the bullpen, Who will come in and who will clamp down and shut down an opposing team's offense? Which starting pitcher will live up to the expectations, just like Jake Irvin did last night and had 1-run ball through 7 innings pitched? Those are the kind of things that I will be looking at moving forward. And these are the kind of things that you can root for, and there is a reason to watch for. Because I know this. Washington, it's a very good baseball town. I do believe that. But also it's football season. People are wondering, well, what do you have to watch for anymore? CJ Abrams isn't playing well. Dylan Cruz went 0 for 4 last night. What else are we going to do? We're going to watch football. Not necessarily. I think you could watch and find out a lot about this Nationals team. And in fact, I think you will find out a ton about this team and what they are made of. I've got a bold prediction for you. Because you know there will be a big pivotal moment in one of these games in the next week and a half. Last night, unfortunately, that did not happen, and it swayed the other way as the Nats got walked off against the Mets in New York. But over this next week and a half, 10, 13 days, 14 days, however many days it is to the end of the season, you're going to see a pivotal moment. In which player will step up? My prediction is Dylan Cruz. I think Dylan Cruz will hit a walk-off and or a game-winning hit at some point. And these are reasons to watch. This is your reason to really stay all the way through 162 games. It's easy to check out, but still, you have all these young players who are getting a taste of what it's like to try to eliminate a team from postseason contention, from teams that are battling for playoff spots, that want to play in October, that are ready to play in October. And then you have the Nationals, who do have a bright young future ahead of them, but also they're not really fighting for too much. And one thing that I've learned from years past is that there is nothing more dangerous when there's someone who has nothing to lose. And the Nationals, they've got nothing to lose. They're going to throw Kyle Finnegan back-to-back days. You're going to have Dylan Cruz go out there and swing away. You're going to have James Wood try to hit 440-foot home runs just like he did on Sunday's game against the Marlins. This Nationals team, you've got nothing to lose. You're going to find out so much about these young Nats. Jose Ferrer in the back end of the bullpen. When you're up by 1 run in the 9th, maybe he comes in for a save. How will he do? How will he do at Wrigley Field in a night game? Going up against the Cubs who are fighting, try to get a wild card spot for a last-second playoff push. When you have the Phillies in town trying to secure the number 1 seed in the National League or whatever it is, how will Jose Ferrer or Kyle Finnegan do in those situations? Will Mitchell Parker show up and be a big-time kind of pitcher for this Nationals team tonight? Will DJ Hurst show up tomorrow against the Mets and be a big-time kind of pitcher? With these young Nationals, again, they've got nothing to lose. That is a scary sight for a team that has everything to lose with the Cubs, the Mets, the Royals, and of course, the Philadelphia Phillies as well. This is going to be an exciting stretch if you're a Nationals fan, but right now, you got to feel good about where we're headed. So that's kind of my little sentimental thoughts on this Tuesday, you could say. But real quick, I do want to talk about that game last night. It was not great. The Nationals, they did lose 2-1, lost in extras. Of course, the loss came to Jacob Barnes, which at this point in time, you really have nowhere else to go. But in that situation, I would have liked to see maybe someone else. I would have liked to see Davey maybe save Jose Ferrer for that 10th inning there. But Jose Ferrer, he has been kind of like my man crush over the last year and a half. If you're an everydayer, you probably understand that. I've talked about him a lot. And he was on our stock report yesterday. He came in the 9th inning, shut down the New York Mets, had a strikeout. His ERA is down to a 3.51 on the season. Jake Irvin in yesterday's start as well, only walking 1 batter through 7 1/3. He's got his ERA down to 4.07 on the season. Only 5 strikeouts in those 7 innings pitched, but still, that was a prime Jake Irvin start. And yesterday's loss, I mean, listen, we all know it's no secret to any of us at this point in time. That was strictly on the offense. When you have your top 3 batters, or really top 4 batters, with Andres Chaparro, Dylan Cruz, James Wood, and Juan Yepez combined for only 2 hits in yesterday's game. Luis Garcia coming off the bench, not getting any action as well. Jose Tena, not much. No Nationals had any multi-hit games yesterday, so it wasn't the best game for the Nats, as we all know. There's no secret there, but still, the Nationals, they fought, they battled, and the pitching was really what carried the Nationals in yesterday's game. So thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And now, let me tell you guys about some of our very good friends over at PrizePicks. And of course, we've talked about PrizePicks before, but if you don't know, PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. And PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. And PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And of course, you can now use PrizePicks in California, Texas, and of course, Georgia, my home state as well, Virginia. So all you have to do is download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Now we get back into it with the Nationals and the Mets. But before we get into that little preview, let's talk CJ. I've seen a lot of people out there, especially on like Twitter and stuff. And Twitter is not real. I understand that. But I've seen a lot of people kind of be down on CJ Abrams here recently. I'm here to tell you that you should not be down on CJ Abrams whatsoever. Let's lay out the facts here. Over the years, CJ Abrams, including last year, he struggled. The numbers overall weren't all too great. But he was also 22 last year in 2023. He's still 23 years old sitting here today. The first half of the season, he was a legitimate all-star. He was one of the better shortstops, offensive shortstops rather, I should say, in the National League. And really in all of Major League Baseball as well. There were at times where his numbers were comparable to Mookie Betts at points this season. The second half, though, has been a completely different story. He has struggled. He has dealt with some injuries, a lingering back issue, and now there's a shoulder issue. 162 games is very tough on the body. Let's lay out the facts right then and there. He has struggled. We understand that. But what I don't understand, well, I guess I kind of do. But what I really don't get is that people will tie on to the struggles here. They'll say, well, he's struggling right now. He's struggling. Why will he not be consistent? I scream that same thing, by the way. That is an issue that he isn't consistent. But I'm a half glass full kind of guy, not a half glass empty kind of guy, if you know what I'm saying. Why don't we kind of hold on and grasp the fact that this guy was an all-star shortstop at the age of 23 for the first half of this season, putting up monstrous numbers. At points, he was on pace for a 30 home run kind of year. That's what he was doing in the first half. He was showing power. He was showing speed, athleticism, all the things that you wanted to see from CJ Abrams, he was showing you and me. But now we're talking about the struggles. We're talking about, well, he's not staying healthy. His approach isn't the same. He's not really getting all that hard of contact anymore. He did reach his 2020 season mark, but he's better than that. And I agree. He is better than what he has showed. But that should not change the fact that this is your shortstop moving forward. This is going to be your guy. This is going to be your big bobblehead day for hopefully the next 5+ seasons. And if I'm the Nationals sitting here today on September 17th, 2024, my main priority sitting here today is you should extend CJ Abrams still. And in fact, let's kind of get this out of the way. This might be the best thing that has happened for the Nationals, this struggle. I'm not saying that CJ Abrams is going to be some all-star shortstop for the next decade, but he has the ability to be. I'm not saying that he's going to be a Gold Glover defensively, because let's be honest, he probably won't be. But CJ Abrams offensively, and the skills that he is still very worthy of an extension. And this should be the Nationals' top priority heading into the offseason as far as guys in their building goes. CJ is at the top of the list, in my opinion, of guys who deserve an extension. Maybe you want to talk about Kyle Finnegan. Sure, but I think he's really a setup guy on a really good postseason team. I think he's a fine closer. He was an all-star this year, but we could do without Kyle Finnegan. We could replace him. It won't be that easy, but you could replace him. It's a lot easier to replace a closer like Finnegan than to replace a shortstop like CJ Abrams. But people are down on him. And it's because I think we forgot how good this guy was in the first half of the season. You see the errors on defense. And yes, his defense, it needs some work. Absolutely. But what this guy does at the plate and the game wrecker that he can be at the plate is very much so worth an extension. And again, let me reiterate this big, overwhelming point. The fact is, he's going to be an expensive kind of extension. It's going to be expensive. It's going to cost a lot. Will the learners do it? That's up for a better debate at this point. But the Nationals should still get that done. And that should still be a top priority. He should be one of the higher paid shortstops in the National League at this point. He has shown me enough. And also, let's hit home on this point. He's 23 years old. 23. If he was a Washington National, if he was drafted by the Nationals back in the day and not the Padres, CJ Abrams probably would have made his major league debut last opening day. Maybe even a little bit later than that. Maybe last summer. He is still so young and has so much potential. He is developing still on the fly. Next season is when I will want to see consistency. Let's just say he does struggle like this next year. And, people are kind of talking about what he should be down the line. I think that is fair. But at this point in time, if you are anything but encouraged about CJ Abrams, then I can't really discuss that at this point. Because this year has been a success for him overall. And of course, we can't acknowledge the struggles, but that is going to come. Elly De La Cruz last year. Now, Elly De La Cruz is, number one, a much better player than CJ Abrams. But number two, he's got a lot more talent as well, still. People struggle. They are going to struggle. It doesn't matter how much talent you have. Major League Baseball is a tough sport. I think Nationals fans, including myself, we have been spoiled by Trey Turner, Ian Desmond back in the day, Bryce Harper, Juan Soto, guys who come up and make a relatively immediate impact on this major league team. But also in some cases, and also in a lot of cases, guys take a while to develop. I think CJ Abrams is going to have seasons where his OPS is around 850. I think he's going to have seasons where his slugging is around 440, 460, in that range there. I think he's got that kind of potential, and maybe even more than that, to be honest. The stolen base threat that he is every single day out in the base path, it's there. The talent that he has offensively, it's there. And at times, the plate discipline that he has shown, it is there as well. He's going to go in this offseason. He's going to get healthy. And again, you should not be discouraged whatsoever with CJ Abrams and never stress about this guy being the shortstop of the future for this team. Because I can tell you this much, he's your guy. See, number 5, he will be your Washington Nationals shortstop for the next 5 seasons. Simple as that. And hopefully the Nationals can get done an extension relatively soon and make him the shortstop for the next decade plus. Because that's what I want. And I think that's what you should want as well. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Now let's preview game 2 of this Mets-Nats series, as it is playoff baseball up in Citi Field in New York, in Queens, New York, rather, I should say. Before we get into it, I'm going to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. And you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Again, you get free NFL Sunday Ticket. If you're living in the DC area and maybe you're a Bears fan and you can't watch Caleb Williams all the time, well, now you can with this at least through September 22nd. So enjoy week 3 action from your couch on YouTube TV. All you'll have to do is visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Again, FanDuel.com. And now you will get NFL Sunday Ticket for free all the way through September 22nd with our friends at FanDuel.com. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Let's preview this Nats-Mets series. The Mets are playing for a little postseason baseball, and as well, the Nationals, this is their postseason sitting here today. So you've got Tyler McGill against Mitchell Parker tonight. As we sit here today, the New York Mets, they got to start winning some baseball games because it is starting to come down to crunch time for them. And yesterday they did win in extra innings, but still, the Nationals, I think at this point in time, they're going to play some home wrecking here. I would not be surprised if Mitchell Parker comes out here tonight and just kind of shoves it. That's kind of where I sit here today and sit and think, can the Nationals do this? Can they knock off the Mets? Because right now, the New York Mets are a game above the Atlanta Braves in that 3rd wildcard spot. You've got Tyler McGill, which, by the way, his season numbers aren't really that great. He's got a 4.48 ERA on the season. And again, some Nationals have had some success against him, including Joey Gallo, who's got 2 home runs off Tyler McGill. You got Luis Garcia, who is not good against him at all. He is 1 for 10 on him against him. Keibert Ruiz has had some pretty relatively good success against him as well. He has 3 of 8, the 944 OPS. He's got an RBI in there as well. But other than that, the New York Mets in limited action in only 1 game against Mitchell Parker, some of them kind of rocked him around a little bit, including Francisco Lindor, who's got a home run against him. You've got other guys in this scenario as well that could kind of do some damage against the Nationals. But overall, again, to kind of wrap this and make this a full circle here, the Nationals are playing for nothing. They are just going out there trying to win a baseball game. The New York Mets, they've got everything on the line. The Atlanta Braves, they lost last night. New York Mets won. And if you're a Mets fan, you're probably sitting there thinking, well, we'll do pretty well against this pretty not so great Nationals team. I don't think that's going to be the case. And again, if you're a Nationals fan, you've got something to watch for. you can play spoiler, and it starts tonight. It really started last night, but they spoil us. So we'll see what the Nationals can do. But again, the Nationals, don't bet against them. I'll tell you that right now. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And now, enjoy tonight's game. Go Nets.